Good morning vlog. It is Monday, April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day if you celebrate that. I don't like it all too much. I enjoy it from the perspective that, I like being sneaky in a sense of pulling practical jokes on people sometimes, but I don't like it in the sense of companies and organizations getting in on it and sending out these bogus reports of something outrageous. The only thing that ever came out of it was Gmail from Google, because they actually announced that product on April 1st, way back when, 2000, when was it? 2007, 2006, 2000, something like that, maybe 2005. But at the time, it was unheard of to have online email with a gigabyte of online storage. But as I like to stay on top of tech news stuff, or try to, I really don't like April Fool's Day, because there's nothing I can trust this day to help scratch my tech knowledge itch. But I am trying to save some time this morning and not making my usual morning coffee, and I'm going with this energy drink alternative for my caffeine intake, called, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Bang. I don't know. I'm usually a balls guy, but because the sugar in balls is just makes, it's not keto friendly at all, and I haven't tried the sugar-free balls yet. I might need to go find that somewhere and try that out. But this one is this Bang is the Bangster berry. I like puns ish. And they have a whole different mess of flavors. I was able to find some of these on special, and they have there's zero fat, zero carb, all that stuff. I'm wondering whether these are too good to be true on from a keto perspective, because I don't really know what other concoctions or fully understand what's going on in here. And generally the rule of thumb with keto, if you don't really understand it or don't really know what's in it, then you should probably stay away from it. But at least I know with these, it's zero carbs, zero fat, zero protein, but so it fits within my macro, the terminology, my macro diet. So yeah, I'm just going to try these out. I'm not going to be chugging them down each and every day, but some mornings whenever I need that little bit of extra time to reclaim from making coffee itself, boiling the water, pouring it over, things like that. Just having one of these handy for when I need to get some additional stuff done in the morning can be really useful. And so I'm taking that extra time, aside from doing an update on the vlog. I am editing the next episode of the Messiah Upper Room podcast, because we need an alternative episode to release this week. I've already gone into it a little bit in the past, and in a past episode where Pastor Audie replied back and kind of agreeing to be more wary for that episode. We maybe some point in the future we'll get to a point where we can release it, or if he wants to do an alternative edit or something like that, then I can submit that. But for right now, we're just going to keep that episode locked away for a little bit longer before we release it. Still have about 30 minutes or so of audio to edit for the next podcast, but I'm needing to head out to work pretty soon. But I'm glad that I was able to just start. That situations happened to where we needed to start editing this episode sooner, because I think there's some issue happening with Pastor Audie's mic that I'm not able to hear over the PA system, but I can hear it in the recording, the direct audio line recording that we have. So it's a weird staticky thing. Unfortunately, I don't have any alternative audio source to pull off of, because it's coming directly from his microphone. So, or at least that's what I think. So I need to do some additional troubleshooting. Maybe the microphone wire is just getting too old. I mean, I don't know how old that mic is that we're using for him. He uses a little headset mic that comes down to about right here, and I'm not quite sure. So I kind of heard it a little bit at the beginning of class yesterday. So either the connection just isn't proper. Maybe I need to reseat the connecting unit between the microphone and the body pack just to clear anything out, maybe make a better connection. Hopefully that's all that's needed. Otherwise, we may need to look into using a different microphone to connect to that body pack, or we may just need to look into getting a whole new microphone itself. That's going to be something I bring up to Pastor whenever I submit this episode to him. Hopefully I'm hoping to have it done by tomorrow at the latest, if not by the end of today once I get home after work. And it gets a little annoying, especially when you notice it and then you keep hearing it. Sometimes it goes away. I'm hoping it fixes itself a little bit later in the episode, but so far it's been fairly constant. You only hear it when Pastor is speaking, though. So I'm not quite sure whether it's maybe so it's either a connection or it might be RF interference for whatever reason. But even then, if it were RF interference, I would assume it would be kind of a constant thing, even when Pastor isn't speaking or moving around. But either way, I won't be able to really tell until I get back to church in my hands physically on the body pack to do some physical troubleshooting just in case. So that's what I found this morning, and now it is time for me to grab my lunch, pack up a few things, and head out to work. And of course, I hope you have a wonderful Monday. And yeah, if you're watching this Monday morning, go kill it, and just enjoy the day. Made it into work, and on the way in, I actually had, let me get the camera right here. I actually was listening to a fantastic interview on the Tim Ferriss podcast with Neil Gaiman, who I only discovered really through Tim Ferriss because he keeps ranting and raving about all these different Neil Gaiman books, particularly the Graveyard book, which is his favorite. And I'm so glad that I picked it up because I like to describe Neil Gaiman as the Stephen King for children. Really interesting, kind of creepy, yet entertaining children's stories that are just a wonderful wonder to just a pleasure to read, rather, as an adult. And so that in particularly has inspired me or motivated me, I guess, to go and get the book Good Omens as well, because that's turned into an Amazon web series with David Tennant and another gentleman in the lead role who apparently acts very similarly to David Tennant. Heading back home from work now, and I got another email from Apple today that my resubmission of the Built-in Obsolescence podcast was also denied because of the exact same issue. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's some issue on my part. Maybe the website that I'm using, that has the web page that I'm using, has a cache version of the original file, that size file, that is too large for iTunes to accept, and the changes that I made just didn't go through, or it's not pointing to the right image file that should be within the size constraints. But I don't know what's going on, so I'm gonna have to go back and double check, triple check again and make sure it's all right, and then I guess file for appeal. But I guess regardless, I'm going to submit this podcast to all the other platforms just so I can get it out there at least, and then iTunes is just going to have to catch up because this is fracking ridiculous. I'm getting a little aggravated, but hey, it's a learning experience. All right, vlog. So just finished with, well, not just, but we finished with another episode of the Built-in Obsolescence podcast. And after talking with Danny for a little bit on some of the issues I'm having with publishing the podcast onto iTunes, just working it out with him, going step by step. Well, like, okay, the artwork's fine on the podcast feed, but whenever I mastered the podcast and exported the MP3 file in Ferrite, I can set the album artwork of the podcast episode itself. And I think that is where I'm hitting the issue, is that with the episode itself, I probably have the original huge file that is outside of the dimension requirements for iTunes. So the cool thing with podcasts, especially if you have longer podcasts, so you can put in album artwork at a few different levels. So you can put in your general album artwork, like all the way at the top on the podcast itself. That's pretty much the default album artwork. If there's nothing else, that's what's going to be shown. Then on the, so you have it up here. Then on the next level, you have on the episode by episode basis of the podcast episode and what album artwork is displayed on that particular episode when you play it. Now, below that episode, within that episode, you can set different, they're called bookmarks or chapters, like in a book, where you can then further set individual album artwork, and it transitions as the episode itself progresses through time. So at different time markers, you have different illustrations or pictures, infographics, something that is illustrating whatever is being spoken about at that time, at that timestamp. So those are those different layers that you can go through. So basically what I need to do is I need to go back on my iPad here that I have. Here we go. On this iPad. And just reassign the album artwork, re-export it, re-upload it, resubmit it, all the re's, and then we should be good to go on iTunes. So that is what I'm going to do in terms of re-exporting tonight before I head to sleep. And yeah, because after recording that, for some reason, it has just beat me silly. So I'm going to get some sleep, but because I am early to bed, that means I will thankfully be early to rise. And then I can finish up all this stuff that I need to do before heading out to work again. And speaking of work, I mentioned that I did have an announcement, and I do have an announcement dealing with work. I'm starting a new job 2 weeks from, or well, actually just 2 weeks from today, pretty much. I'm moving from my current position in the internet marketing realm, and I am moving over to the private schooling realm and the IT support realm. So I'm very excited by this new opportunity, looking forward to starting in a couple of weeks, and I think it'll definitely be a change for the better. So there's my final bit of good news. I hope you had a great Monday, and I will see you tomorrow.